This is a bear rock back for pelvic floor awareness. It can be really helpful for connecting with both the front and the back side of the pelvic floor. In this position, we're really feeling and sensing the sits bones sort of spread and open behind us in this position. It's important for us in general to be able to connect with both the anterior and the posterior sides of the pelvic floor. Feel the sits bones lift and the tissues on the back side sort of release tension, so that that will translate into our hinges or squats and other various movements as we progress. So I'm in this position, my feet are dragging up the wall, pushing actively through the hands, so I'm keeping my ribs back. And in this position, I want to think about kind of untucking the pelvis just slightly. If I'm already in this big anterior tilt, I probably don't need to keep going with that, but we want to make sure that we're not rounding and tucking under, because we want to feel those sits bones lift and spread apart. So from the side, I'm keeping the ribs back, and I'm essentially just thinking about slightly keeping the ribs back, slightly untucking the pelvis and keeping the sits bones lifted. Utilizing the hamstrings and the feet dragging up the wall can be really helpful for this. So in this position, I'm going to allow the pelvis to dump forward just slightly, so the sits bones lift on the back side. I'm going to think about breathing on the inhale, allowing the air and pressure to flow down, and then exhale, adding that lift on the pelvic floor, probably sensing more of that anterior, that front side pelvic floor with the pelvis in that more little bit anterior tilt position. Sits bones stay lifted. From here, I'm going to come and rock back onto my forearms. In this position, key things. We don't want to flare out through the rib cage, so keep the ribs back, keep the sits bones open. Inhale, feel air and pressure flow down. Exhale. Coming back into this position, pelvis dumps slightly forward, push through the hands, keep the ribs back. Gaze stays forward so we don't flex through and bring the sternum down with us. Sits bones open, inhale. Exhale. Slight lift, feeling more of a connection to anterior pelvic floor. Inhale. Exhale. Now I'm going to rock back on my forearms, keeping my sits bones lifted. I can even do a little wedgie pick to help, keeping the ribs back. Inhale. Feeling that air flow between the sits bones. Exhale. And this is where you're going to go. Just bear rock backs with that pelvic floor. Anterior, keeping that slight untuck. Air press, air kind of to the sits bones. Exhale. More anterior pelvic floor. And then rocking back. Keeping the sits bones lifted, ribs back. So that is your bear rock back. And eventually we can also progress that and think about going into more of an inverted down dog position.